We talk about people who go to AI for advice, and that's a little sketchy, but there's also people who just go to the random internet for advice. Like they go to social media to like diagnose their problems. And I'm like, hey, how about maybe go to a professional?
People tend to regurgitate the same bad advice over and over again. There's things where it's like, yeah, this worked or it seemed to work for them, but it's like it's probably not going to work for others, or it's just not a good idea, or it's not ethical. It's really hard, as we both know, to give out generic advice that's going to be effective for everyone's cats. And I can't really give out, here's what to do in the comments. They've been like, okay, well, how do I train this behavior? And I'm like, okay, so this is kind of going to depend on your cat. One method may work for one cat, but not another, or you may need to change directions here. And they're like, but give me a step-by-step exactly how I do it. And I'm like, I could just give you a generic plan, but like,
It's not going to work.
it's not going to work. Do you want it to work?
Yeah.
Part of it is that I don't want to overpromise anything or be like unrealistic. I want to give you like an honest assessment about like what's going on. And that may be like sounding like, oh, he's not confident about it. And it's like, yes, I'm not confident about it and it's not because I don't know what I'm doing. It's because I do know what I'm doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's a sign of someone who can say, I don't know, or, like we need more information, or I'm not sure about this part of it. That's a good thing.
That's a good
like
sign,
you want
yeah.
someone who's not going to be like, I know everything.
Rushing into things.
Yeah, or is going to be giving you questionable advice. People tend to underestimate how complicated things are. Part of the process of figuring these things out is that we need to try some things and see how they go. Realistically, we may have to change things. Just because something doesn't work immediately doesn't mean it's not going to work. It may take more time, or it may be you need to adjust what you're doing, or you may not be doing it to enough of a degree that you need to. The number of times people will be like, oh, the clicker training isn't working. And I'll be like, okay, well, tell me a little bit more about what you're doing. And they'll be like, well, I'll click, and then the cat will come and I'll give them a treat. I'm like, nope. Like, that's not how you do clicker training. You're not using the clicker as a cue. You're using the clicker to be like, the thing you just did is going to get you whatever reinforcement you're using.
Part of me is wondering, like, what is it that keeps our clients from communicating with us? Because we can only help them adjust their plan with our professional expertise if they communicate. Like, if your client, they tried clicker training and they applied it incorrectly and they never got back to you. And they then assume that you don't know what you're talking about because they tried to implement your advice and it didn't work. What do you think it is that keeps clients from communicating, both with behavior consultants and with, like, say, veterinarians, if they're like not able to give the cat the medicine that's been prescribed because they apparently have tried to pill their cat the wrong way, and so they can't give the cat the medicine, but they never tell the vet that?
I wonder sometimes if it's shame or they're going to feel bad. I think sometimes people may be kind of like embarrassed, or they may have gone into it with unrealistic expectations. I try and incorporate things that at least some of it is going to be easier or quicker, or like you may see a little bit of that like initial benefit, but that may not be enough for them. I don't think people always realize that some of the benefit of the working with the professional is that we can adjust the plan as needed. I tell people, some of the stuff I'm going to have you do, it may not work or it may not resolve the issue, and we have to adjust things, and that's normal and expected. And it's not because it's bad advice necessarily. It's just that your cat is an individual, and part of the process is we have to try different things. I had a client, I remember, that they put things off for like 2.5 months. And they're like, yeah, we wanted to finally check in because we just got stuck. We were hoping to make more progress before we kept going. And client, I was like, oh, okay, hang on, let's talk about like, where you got stuck. And I like asked them a couple questions about like, okay, what were you doing? And it took me less than 5 minutes to be like, okay, so here's the part that like you needed to adjust, and like you'll start seeing progress. And the next time I saw them, they were like, yeah, the stuff that you suggested and switched, like we're actually further along now. And
Yay.
It really does benefit you to follow up, especially like if things aren't working. I can't make any adjustments if I don't know what's going on or if you don't follow up. Be upfront with whoever you're working with if there's something that you're like, this just isn't going to work. Realistically, there may not be a solution that's perfect, or that like you don't have to make changes. And then you have to decide, is this something I want to put effort into, and is it worth it to
Right.
me? Completely non-judgmentally, that's up to you if it's worth it or
Mm-hmm.
not. It might not be. And then you have to figure out, okay, what is like an alternative solution or something like that.
Right.
I get a lot of people who they're like, how do I get away with like, having my cat not do X, Y, or Z without adding in cat furniture? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
you basically don't.
Basically don't.
Like
Yeah.
if you have cats, you need cat furniture. You need
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that they have stuff that they can climb on and scratch. And like there's nice looking cat furniture if that's important to you, but you will have to change your environment. I'm sorry if that's not what you want to hear. Having a litter box is part of having a cat.
I've had a
Like,
client who had a multi-cat situation and was hesitant to add a litter box, but that was the number one thing that I felt would be useful in their particular case. And I told them up front, I'm like, we can try these other things that may help. But ultimately, I don't think it's going to resolve this issue. And I think what you really need to do is add, a litter box in a different location so that the cats can't prevent each other from accessing the litter box, creating tension. And if that's a deal breaker for you, then just be honest with yourself about that and recognize the fact that this may not resolve and you may have ongoing problems.
which one is more important? Do you want the behavior issue to be resolved, or do you want the litter box in a location that you don't love? Realistically, an ethical professional is going to tell you that you might not be able to 100% get something to go away, but we can manage it. We can still make your life easier. We can make it happen less often. Like, it may not be 100% fixed, and anyone who's providing guarantees is not behaving ethically. Do you have any suggestions for people out there who might be looking at hiring a behavior pro besides hiring the two of us? Because obviously that's a really good idea.
Those were some of the best choices, but maybe not for everyone. Look for someone who puts himself out there and communicates in a way that you're like, yeah, I can resonate with this. Whatever content they're putting out there, whether that's blogs or YouTube videos or their website presence, get a sense of what their personality is like. I would say watch out for red flags, like, claims of guarantees or people who are saying like that such and such formula is going to offer a quick fix. I mean, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And those folks are probably just looking for ways to take your money. I hate to say it, but watch out for those kinds of red flags because they're out there. And maybe look for some certifications or memberships with different organizations, because while those are not a guarantee, they are a helpful sign that they're committed to ethical practices. They're trying to learn and trying to do better. Look for somebody who's communicating expertise, but also like openness about what kinds of expectations you can have from your working relationship with them. And that can help you get a feel for what it would be like to work with that person.
You need to make sure that you are going to be a good fit with whoever you're working with, not just picking whoever is the first available person. Do you think that there's any like signs that maybe this is the point where YouTube or a blog is not gonna cut it? I would argue most intercat conflict cases end up in that category because they're just so hard to follow generic advice about, and there's a lot of really bad advice out there about it.
Unfortunately, yes. It seems to be the main thing because we have a lot of expectations around what social dynamics look like in cats, and those expectations are just frankly wrong. And so it's harming our attempts to introduce cats.
What's the tipping point that it's like you need some professional help, and like, you may not want to like spend the money on this, but it will absolutely be worth it?
Yeah. My opinion is if you think that it might be time for a professional, it's time for a professional. Because I have never had a client come to me and say that, oh, you know what, I probably could have solved this on my own. No, they all say, I wish I'd come to you sooner. Every single one of them, every single one, especially with intercat conflict. So like we have something valuable to offer, even if all we're doing is helping you connect the dots with information that you already had and trends you were already seeing. We're going to see stuff that you didn't notice because we're a professional. We have the experience. Even if it's a fellow professional, like we have a perspective to offer that could be valuable. So if you think it might be time, it's probably past time really trying to DIY, especially with inner cat conflict, is not a great plan. Things that are good for DIY would be stuff like enrichment. You can add a lot of enrichment to your cat's life and try a lot of different things that may or may not work for your cat, but they're not going to hurt anything. And there's a ton of great and even inexpensive ideas out there online. So enrichment is a good place to start with DIY type stuff. But any type of problematic behavior, there's just so much crap advice out there online that you're better off to seek help from a professional. And of course, any type of medical behavior or something that you think is potentially related to a medical issue, you should be calling your vet. Even if you aren't in a position to have a full-on diagnostic procedure done, you should at least have a conversation with them, and they can usually tell you, oh, this is something that you should wait and see versus this is something you should address right away.
I see a lot of situations on the internet where people will be like, hey, like, what should I do with my cat about X, Y, or Z medical thing? And it's always really concerning seeing some of the replies because it may not be accurate or it could be really dangerous. And I realize going to the vet is not inexpensive, but it's worth it because you're going to spend less if you get it addressed right away rather than let it go on. Plus, again, there's the emotional toll of if something really bad happens to your cat. So,
yeah. And in some cases, your vet will actually say, this sounds like the kind of situation where we can watch it for the next couple of days and see if it progresses. And if it gets worse, call us and we'll do something. Vets are while they're not inexpensive, I don't see any vets getting rich off of the care that they're providing. They do this because they care about helping animals and people. And so if you call your vet and say, do I need to bring my cat in? That's going to save you a huge emotional toll in the long run because they're going to tell you if something is potentially urgent and needs to be addressed. Don't leave those kinds of questions out for the internet because you're going to get either bad advice or you're going to find a whole bunch of symptoms and try to diagnose something and scare yourself. Like the wild internet is not a place for medical advice.
Yeah, where it's like, holy smokes, where did you get that idea? Because no.
Yeah, just no.
There's no other way to say it other than just straight up no. Nope.